Hey y'all, welcome back to Chanel's Kitchen. Today I'm going to show you guys how I made these delicious chocolate cinnamon rolls. Let's get into it. So the first thing I'm doing is adding some room temperature whole milk to a bowl, and then I'm adding in some active dry yeast. You want to make sure that your milk is at least room temperature because you don't want to kill your yeast. Then I just gave my yeast mixture a good stir, and then I added in some brown sugar. This specific brown sugar is from Trader Joe's. I don't know what it is about this brown sugar, but it tastes so good and it adds so much flavor. Then I added in some slightly melted butter. You can use room temperature. And then I whisked in a couple of eggs. I gradually began to add in my flour. I added about half of my flour at a time just to make sure I was getting the consistency that I wanted, because I didn't want to add too much, because I don't know about y'all, but I like my cinnamon rolls a little bit sticky. So now I'm just adding in the other half of my flour and combining that well. In total, I think I used about 3.5 cups of flour to a half cup of cocoa powder. And again, I'm just combining that well. Make sure everything is nice and combined. You want your dough to be slightly sticky to the touch, but you don't want it to stick to your finger. So here I'm adding in some buttermilk. This is going to help loosen our dough up a little bit more. And then I'm adding in some cinnamon to my dough because I really want this to get that classic Texas sheet cake flavor to it. So once I had most of the flavors that I wanted, I went ahead and added in some baking powder and then a little bit of vanilla extract. And as you can see, I added in a little bit more flour. So I'm just going to mix this all together, make sure everything is nice and combined. And eventually, I just went in with my hands to make sure all that flour was nice and incorporated into my chocolatey dough. I kneaded this simply by folding all the edges into each other, making sure all of that flour was nice and combined, and also making sure my dough was firm enough to manipulate, but not too firm. I wanted it to be slightly sticky to the touch. So now I'm just going to let my dough rest for about an hour in the oven while it's off, and I secured it with a tight lid. As my dough was resting, I went ahead and started on my filling. I'm just taking 1 cup of brown sugar, and then I'm adding in a tablespoon of cinnamon and 2 tablespoons of black cocoa powder. Black cocoa powder has a very mild flavor, so these cinnamon rolls really are not too rich. It's the perfect balance of chocolate. Anywho, I added in 1 stick of melted butter to this mixture, and I'm just giving it a good mix all together until it's nice and well combined. Y'all, this mixture smells so good. It literally smelled like Oreos. Like, I kid you not, it smelled exactly like Oreos. I just wanted to stuff my face in it in that instant as I was mixing it together. But I didn't. I waited. I showed some restraint. Anyways, I'm adding in a little bit of vanilla extract to this mixture, and I'm stirring it really well to make sure everything is combined. And now this is ready to be set to the side. So now that my dough is ready, I'm just lightly flouring a surface, and then I'm gently rolling my dough out onto that surface. And I'm just slightly pressing the air out of my dough, and I added a little bit more flour on top and gave it a couple kneads. Not for very long. I just kneaded it for about another 2 minutes just to make sure all the air was out and to make sure all of that flour was nicely incorporated. When I was all finished kneading, I just went ahead and added a little bit more flour to the top of my dough as well as to my rolling pin, and then I just started rolling this out to form a rectangular shape. I pretty much covered my whole surface with my dough. Now our dough is ready for that delicious filling. So I'm just spreading that evenly all over my dough until it's all on there. I don't know how to say that, until it's all on there. I spread it all the way to the edges, like pretty much every inch was covered except like the very, very tips, or I guess I should say the edges of the dough. But yeah, I just spread that mixture all over. Make sure it was nice and even. And once that mixture was spread to my liking, I went ahead and started rolling my dough very gently. I wanted these cinnamon rolls to have pretty big swirls, if that makes sense. I don't know. You'll see at the end what I mean. But I didn't tuck the dough too much because of that. I wanted it to have a thick swirl. And once my dough was rolled into like this log shape, I went ahead and started cutting it into little pinwheels. And this is what I mean by thick swirl. It's just like this giant one swirl. After I finished cutting all of my cinnamon rolls, I added them to a greased baking pan. I greased it with butter, of course. And I'm just placing them evenly in rows. And then I'm going to let them rise for another about 30 minutes. And for this rise, I'm just loosely covering them up with plastic wrap. I did let them rise on top of the oven as my oven was preheating on 350 degrees. Just because wherever your dough is rising, you want it to be warm. You want that area to be warm. Not super warm, just a little bit warmer than room temperature. And as you can see, after about 30 minutes, they get a little bit bigger. But before they go into the oven, I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of heavy cream right on top, making sure each cinnamon roll is nice and coated with that heavy cream. It's going to make the center so gooey. This is a must. After I finished drizzling all that heavy cream on there, I just baked these in the oven on 350 for about 20 to 25 minutes. This is how they came out once they were finished. Now they look a little bit ashy, don't they? But that's okay. We're gonna make this delicious chocolate icing to go right on top. And for that, all you need is some softened cream cheese, some softened butter, and you just wanna give that a good whisk until it's nice and creamy. And then I'm adding in some Dutch processed, emphasis on the Dutch process, cocoa powder, and some powdered sugar, and a little bit of heavy cream, giving that a good whisk until it's nice and well combined. To make this super glossy and smooth, I added in a little bit more heavy cream, and I'm pretty sure I added some more vanilla extract. I don't know what happened to that clip, but add it. And then I also added in some pecans. And now this icing is ready to be added right on top of those lovely, luscious cinnamon rolls. Now, these cinnamon rolls require quite a bit of chocolate. You don't have to use all the different types of chocolates that I used, but I just think that they gave a really good balance of richness and flavor, because the cocoa powder and the Dutch processed chocolate and the black cocoa powder all have very different flavors and boldness and richness. So they just ended up balancing out really well. So this is how my cinnamon roll came out. Oh my God, y'all. This tasted so good. It tasted exactly like that spiced chocolate sheet cake. Please give this a try. And if you do, be sure to tag me. Thank y'all so much for watching, and be sure to follow me on all my social media platforms, and I'll see y'all in my next one. Bye.